Welcome back to the Rail Lovers Podcast. My name is Marley Silverbrand, and I'll be your host as always. And we are continuing our trek, our journey, our exploration of the Letterboxd Top 250. And the film we're featuring today is the 1998 Saving Private Ryan film, directed by Steven Spielberg. And joining me for the discussion of this film is Matt Vella, the host of the Upcoming Attractions podcast, and an award-winning filmmaker. Did I get that right, Matt?
Yeah, not like this movie, but yeah,
Yeah.
I've got a few under my belt. Yeah,
Matt, welcome to the Real Lovers Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I've been trying to get you on this podcast for a really long time, and ever since I started, I told you I'm doing a series where I'm just watching as many of these Letterboxd Top 250 films. This was the first movie that that jumped out at you because you haven't seen it before, right?
I saw it, but like I was very little, so all I could really remember was, well, actually, as I was watching it, a lot of it came back to me. But oh boy, man, I feel like we messed up because. What's there to say about this movie that hasn't already been said, right? It's such an iconic classic movie.
Well, it's a Steven Spielberg film, and I think at this point it's kind of like a cop-out thing to say that it's Steven Spielberg is the GOAT. So it's pretty much every movie that I watch from his. I've never really had like a bad experience watching it, and Steven Spielberg is the GOAT.
It's insane. Like you just look at his resume, and it's not only this movie changed this genre, this movie changed history, this movie did this, but on top of all that, like how many other directors do you know that can just completely champion and master a genre or multiple genres? Like he's done horror, killed it, sci-fi, killed it, family friendly comedy, adventure movies, killed it. War movies, killed it. Like what can't he do? Like, musicals, he's freaking he's done animation, he's literally done everything, and nothing has been bad. It's insane.
Exactly. But yeah, we'll get into our official review in just a few moments. But I always like to start off the show with what we've been watching. But Matt, since you're the host of the Upcoming Attractions podcast, I decided to put a little spin on this. So let's do what we've been watching trailer edition. Like if you've been watching any trailers. If you haven't, you can continue to like talk about like what else you've been watching. But since you're the host of the Upcoming Attractions, we might as well talk about some of the trailers that just came out.
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay, so obviously this week the hype is about The Flash. We're getting the early screenings, and I think that's one of the coolest trailers I've seen in a while. I know a lot of controversy, I know a lot, but like we've heard all these rumblings about like behind the scenes, people have been like, it's one of the best superhero movies ever made. And I've been from the camp, this is all bullshit. This is just them trying to save grace. But now we're getting the early like reviews out, and people are backing that up. And that trailer is incredible. So that's blowing my mind right now. What other trailers are blowing my mind? The Ninja Turtles trailer looks really interesting. You got Seth Rogen basically doing Superbad with the Ninja Turtles, where the teenage Ninja Turtles are going to act like teenagers for once. And my boy Jackie Chan is Master Splinter. And the art style is very Spider-Verse inspired. Holy shit. What other trailers are really blowing me away? There's a new Jennifer Lawrence movie. I'm not saying it's going to be great, but it's called No Hard Feelings, but it feels like a throwback to like early 2000s raunchy comedies type thing.
That's the one where she's not a prostitute, but the parents basically hire her to kind of this sounds really bad.
They say dates, but I think they want the full experience type thing.
Yeah, because the kid's like a nerd and I don't that trailer is to me is it's a little cringe, but just because it's Jennifer Lawrence, I know that she's gonna bring like a little something extra to it, and
Yeah, part of you makes you go, Jennifer Lawrence, why are you doing this? Like, you are an Oscar-winning actress. This feels beneath you, but for some reason, that makes me feel like, look, she wants to step out of her comfort zone. She wants to try something new. Um, Look, I'm not saying it's going to be good, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see how that goes.
yeah, for sure.
Um, and of course, the one that I know you and me both want to talk about is Fast X, right?
I don't know. I don't know if both of us.
Well, I know you're a bit. I know you're big. You talk about Fast and Furious a lot on your channels.
Yes.
Um,
Unfortunately, I do.
But I believe you come from a similar camp to me. I think where it's like for me, well, I don't know about you. Sorry, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but for me, it's like I like seeing how dumb they can. I love it. I love how it's just dumb popcorn fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I am finding the last few films, they're starting to like before it was like it was fun to laugh at it, but now they're in on the joke and it's becoming less fun. And I like it when they take themselves too seriously. I want them to keep going. I like them to do like saving the world with cars is insane. I I love that they think that's just like that's a normal concept, you know? I love seeing it get taken to the extremes. I don't have a lot of hopes for Fast X. But that was a good trailer, I suppose. It was definitely better than everything I saw from 9. 9 was pretty disappointing.
Yeah, 9 was just kind of out there and just balls to the wall. This kind of seems like it's going back to its roots, and I don't know. I'm a fan, I guess, of Louis. What's Louis? It's a French.
Oh, the director.
Yeah.
Oh god, the replacement Justin Wong. I'll pull it up. I can pull
Justin
it up.
Lin.
Sorry.
Justin Lin.
Oh, sorry, Justin. Sorry, wrong Justin.
Yeah.
I've been playing a lot of Street Fighter lately, and there's a player called Justin Wong. My bad.
Louis Leterrier, I think that's his name. I'm just gonna butcher it, so it's cool. But I've only seen one of the Transporter films, and based on the trailer, it's very much a Transporter film because there's a ton of explosions, and I'm gonna reserve my judgment until I actually see it. But it's I don't know. I miss Justin Lin just being behind the wheel. I know he's still a producer, but it's very unfortunate that he had to leave. So
that director who is now directing Fast X, the reason I think he's such a good pick is he directed this movie called Now You See Me. Have you seen Now You See Me by any chance?
I have not, unfortunately.
Dude, it's so stupid. It's basically Fast and Furious, but instead of saving the world with cars, it's saving the world with magic tricks, which is so stupid. But it's got big blockbuster tentpole like movie franchise like freaking stakes. It's over the top, and that's what that franchise needs. So I have some faith, not a lot of faith, but I have some faith in Fast X.
Yeah. I at this point, like I've said this before on my TikTok and just like the podcast, the Fast and the Furious is just like a family reunion with me. It's just I show up to it every single year. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not, and then I'll move on with my life.
I love that analogy. Yeah. It literally is like a family reunion. You show up, you move on with your life, and you manage to sneak in the word family, and that's just chef's kiss. Perfect.
Right.
Perfect.
But yeah, the trailer is fine. Like I'm here for Jason Momoa and Brie Larson, but yeah, we'll see. We'll find out like next month. It's out next month.
It's soon. I think it's like 2 or 3 weeks, maybe.
May 19th, I think.
Yeah. Oh, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me flip the question here. Are there any trailers or movies upcoming? Oh, I'm my most anticipated, by the way, is Dune 2. Like that's Yes, please.
Well, yeah.
Yes,
Since
please.
you just reversed the question on me, Dune
Yeah.
Part 2 is that for me. I was not really the biggest fan of Dune Part 1. I kind of fell asleep in the theater. I will shamefully
What?
admit. I will shamefully admit.
What?
I just didn't hit. I just did not like it. For some reason. It just wasn't for me. It was very slow and just I don't know. I felt like it was half a
Wow.
film. I felt like it was half a film, which it definitely was because there's two parts.
Yeah. I
So
mean, you're not wrong.
yeah, I don't know. I just and it felt like it just ended like it just cut off. Like I expected like some big conclusion and something like that, and it just ended. And I don't know. Doom Part 2. I'm loving everything so far from the marketing. I think it's really great. But another trailer that just released, just I think it was yesterday. Black Mirror season 6
Ooh,
on
yes.
Netflix.
Yeah.
I've been anticipating this show for the longest time after that really awful Bandersnatch Black Mirror.
Yeah, I
the
wasn't
the
crazy at Bandersnatch, yeah.
the interactive video game, quote unquote video game that
It was a cool experiment, but
it's not Black
like,
Mirror. It's
yeah,
not Black Mirror.
yeah.
But I don't know. I'm super excited for that. That is out June. I might have to resubscribe to my Netflix account.
Mm.
But yeah.
Yeah, I've unsubscribed to a lot of streaming services recently just to, save money. But every now and then you get a trailer come out and I'm just like, oh, do I resubscribe? It's tough, man. It's tough.
I think for me, I've resubscribed to save money, but also I've just been trying to build up my physical media collection again, just because 4K UHD is which is what I watched Saving Private Ryan on, like the upscaled 4K UHD, and Saving Private Ryan looks beautiful, and you can't get that same quality like on streaming just because of certain internet speeds and yeah, but
Well, I watched Saving Private Ryan the way Steven Spielberg intended on my iPhone 10, laying in bed at 2 a.m.
Right now
from a streaming service.
He is he is squirming. He's squirming right now. But yeah,
he's just woken up out of bed. He's like, something's not right. Something bad has happened in the universe. Someone said something they're not supposed to say.
He's like, but yeah, I'm trying to think of other trailers that I've watched.
I just pulled up some movies come out this year that I forgot to mention because you put me on the spot. But
Sorry.
I think no. I can't believe I missed this one. But like, I think one of the biggest films of the year is going to be Barbie. I think Barbie is just going to. I think we're not ready. I think they're gonna. I got a good feeling about this movie. I know they're gonna do something that we don't expect, and I got a lot of faith in that creative team. Of course, I'm excited for Spider-Verse. Okay, I know you like me for my controversial opinions, so I got one for you. Ready? You ready?
Go ahead.
My least anticipated film of the year is Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. I believe Nolan's like biggest weakness is like dialogue and characters, and this is based on a true story. It's like there's not a lot of like, I guess there's a bit of drama. It's about creating nuclear weapons and stuff, so it's kind of dramatic. But like, I'm not expecting there to be a lot of like physical drama. So I feel like it's going to come down to a lot of like philosophical debates and a bunch of like plane rooms and some explosions here and there. But I feel like it has a chance of being one of his weakest films. And I know Nolan fans get, they think of him as a god. So I know they might be getting their pitchforks ready. But I really think Oppenheimer is going to be disappointing, even though I did like Tenet.
I did not like Tenet. I thought it was a little underwhelming, although I did not see it. I saw it on my phone. So Christopher Nolan is probably just Steven Spielberg's wincing for you while Christopher Nolan is just like sharpening his pitchfork.
Yes,
So
that's amazing.
yeah, it was during COVID. It was released during COVID, so I didn't really feel comfortable going back to the theaters, and I paid the full $20 for it, and it just was really incoherent for me, and I just didn't get it. The thing about Oppenheimer, though, is that I don't know. I think the scale of it at this point seems like it could hit kind of like I think it could hit kind of like a Dunkirk in a way. And Dunkirk made like a lot of money. I just did like my top 10 kind of like highest grossing like films that I think are going to make the most money this summer. And I put Oppenheimer like at number 8. I think that's probably fair. And I don't know. I think it's going to be a little bit up in the air, like how successful it's going to be. I am just worried about Oppenheimer because there's a countdown clock on the Universal Pictures YouTube channel, like counting down this movie, like the atomic bomb. I'm just like, is Christopher Nolan gonna kill us? And I'm like, is this gonna end? Is this movie gonna end cinema and the world that we know? And I'm like,
is some there's some merit to your theory, because Nolan is always about like what. Oh, there is some merit. Have I frozen?
You're kind of breaking up a little bit.
Not sure what happened there.
Okay. It's cool.
I should have.
Pick.
All right. Should I do a speed test? Maybe is it me? It's not that bad.
I could still hear you.
All right. Okay. So I'll just go from there.
Yeah.
There is some merit to your theory, because Nolan has a reputation of trying to do the most batshit, insane, dangerous things without the use of CGI. I mean, this guy once crashed a plane into a building. Apparently for this, he did a nuclear weapons test. He's like had planes, like what are you doing? Dark Knight Rises, like cut a plane in half in midair or whatever. Like, so him trying to like, kill us all with the countdown clock. I'm not surprised. He would do it. He's that crazy.
He's like he's like, cinemas may be dying, but this is the last movie you'll ever see. I'm not gonna let anyone else come out on top. I'm gonna come out on top.
If cinema dies, then so do we all.
Right, exactly. But yeah, is there anything else you've been watching, Matt?
I have been catching up on The Mandalorian because I'm a little bit behind. I've been watching because the fans of the show go crazy, but there's an anime called Attack on Titan I've been watching for the first time. I know it's not like typical movies, but like that is a wild fucking show. What else have I been watching? Not a lot at the moment, but I've been falling behind because I've been canceling the streaming services. So I haven't seen the latest season of Atlanta, so I'm pretty bummed about that. So that's probably next on my to-watch list. I'm probably forgetting a big one off the top of my head. What about you? What have you been watching?
I've been watching Ted Lasso. That's kind of like my weekly show that I'm watching like week to week. I've been loving Ted Lasso ever since I picked it up again. I think this latest episode, probably not the latest episode when this episode airs, but the episode where they're on any episode when they're on the road and Ted Lasso says that there's no curfew, and the show is just kind of like showing like perspectives of the players and like how they hang out like amongst each other. I feel like that's when you get kind of like the most from the show and from the characters. Like last season in season 2, we had like no spoilers, but you had like have you seen Ted Lasso? Or I've
started the first season and then I I when I started, I ended up binging. So I like the show for sure, but I haven't gotten around back to it yet. But I do see the hype. It's a really well written show. Ted Lasso is such a lovable character, but I don't know most of their names and stuff like that. So a lot of those references might go over my head.
Oh, okay. Well, there's just like like one episode that featured like one of the coaches from season 2, and he was it was probably the best episode of season 2, where it's pretty much a short film, like about like him going out on having like a night out on the town and just kind of like just letting loose because he's kind of the uptight one. It was my favorite episode of season 2, and season 3 has an episode like this, but involving like the whole entire team, which was absolutely incredible. But yeah, so I'm loving that. I haven't really been watching too many movies lately, but I have been watching a lot of YouTube. So,
you and me both, brother.
Upcoming attractions on YouTube. I've been watching that. No.
Thank you.
And then I've also been watching a YouTube channel called Cinema Therapy. Just giving them a shout out. Cinema Therapy is a YouTube channel where basically two wonderful gentlemen talk about movies. One is a therapist and one is a filmmaker. And the therapist kind of gives like their kind of like they therapize like the movie and like kind of like talk about like certain elements from it.
That's a cool concept.
Yeah, it's a really cool concept, and one of my favorite episodes is when they did Everything Everywhere All at Once, and the entire video is basically them kind of like going in and out of different universes where they're a cartoon. It's really well edited and really well produced, and I've noticed that a lot of YouTube channels, like when they talk about Everything Everywhere All at Once, there's always like this like multiverse thing that's happening like in the video where they're kind of like, now we're, I don't know, like if we were doing it, it would be like the Short Lovers pod. I don't know, you know what I mean? It's just like it keeps.
And we got hot dogs on our fingers, and
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which I think is really great that a movie like that can kind of like inspire like all these other universes. But that's pretty much all I've been watching. Cinema Therapy on YouTube, and then Ted Lasso.
That's cool. Yeah. Top of my head, I guess. Been really liking the new season of South Park. I feel like it feels like they've gotten back to their roots a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the Mario Brothers movie the other week, actually. We haven't covered that on the podcast. That was my most anticipated film of the year because I grew up obsessed with Nintendo, and that delivered. It was fun. Like, obviously, like I get the big debate right now with Rotten Tomatoes is like, is there a reason for critics? Because the critics were like, it's okay, and the fans are like, it's the best thing ever. But I think the thing is like critics are watching movies for different reasons than the average audience thing. So whenever I see people saying like, how dare this get a bad review? It's like, well, you're both looking for different things. Like me as a fan, if I go to watch Mario, I want to see the Koopa Troopers and I want to see the Mario Kart and I'm getting my little references and that makes me fun. But if I'm being paid to go there and review a movie, I want to be like, oh, well, the third act structure is weak. And, you know, the average film person isn't watching with that in mind. So that's a debate going on right now. I just think it's so dumb, personally. But I love the movie. It was fun.
Yeah, I personally think that the Rotten Tomatoes, like, just the way people hype it up, especially online on social media, I think is a little is real dumb. And like I just want people to just actually read the reviews that like from the critics, because like if you like, yeah, this critic score is actually low for the Mario Brothers movie, but if you click like it's saying that like 400 people reviewed the Mario movie, and you click each review, you can actually see like how they actually felt about it, instead of like a number that is representing like an entire group of critics.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Which is why I like Letterboxd more than Rotten Tomatoes. So I'm hoping Letterboxd can
That's fair.
yeah. But I don't know.
For me personally, oh, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, for me personally, it's like I have this really love-hate relationship with internet fandoms because I tend to not agree with stuff. Like, I think it's for me because I come from a filmmaking background. I often think like a producer, and I have these DMs with a mate of mine. We argue all the time, and because he'll be like, "Oh, well, Sony's making a Venom movie, and it's going to be great because it's got this character in it, or whatever." And I'll be like, yeah, but from a producing standpoint, it's a dumb concept. You can't just slap things together and say it's good. Now, it's a lot of Marvel fans, they just need an Easter egg and they're happy or whatever. And that's fair enough to them. But like, I find I end up tending to agree with critics a lot more than I do audience scores. This is one of the few times where I don't. So sometimes it's funny, like when you just see, I see these people on TikTok and they'll be like raging, like, how dare it get this review score? And I'm sitting there just quietly like, oh, well, I think they raised some good points. And I'm trying to get better at not arguing on the internet. So I keep my mouth shut more. I try and keep my mouth shut more, which is hard.
I do the exact same thing, but I have a big mouth and I have a podcast. So it's like, but
it's what podcasts are for.
Yeah, exactly. It's just unleash your rage onto the internet. Well, for most of us, but I think the funny thing is like with Rotten Tomatoes, if I see a low score, I want to see the movie even more. Like that's like because I want to know like how bad this movie is. Like if the critics hate this and the audiences love it, like is it actually a good movie, or is it just like a meme movie or something like that, like Minions, Gentle Minions, or
exactly.
If the critics hate it and the audience hate it too, then like, is it really that bad? Is this like, like I have to know? It's like that curiosity, like part of my brain starts clicking. But
the curiosity part of my brain's really clicking for Beau is Afraid. I haven't said. I don't really want to say it.
It's so good.
I'm not a fan of Ari Aster, which I know is heresy. A lot of people love him. So I was never interested, but I love seeing what makes you want to see it is how people are they're freaking out about the ending. And like people saying it was so good until this part. And I'm just like, what the hell happened? I would need to know what's getting this such a visceral reaction from people. That's super like interesting to me. And I guess to tie this to today's topic, because I'm sorry we got on long about this, but
it's cool. It's cool.
Something I always tell my co-host is like middle of the road movies are the best movies to talk about because they got good things to talk about and they got bad things to talk about. Movies like today's subject, Saving Private Ryan, these episodes, in my opinion, are the worst episodes because, of course, we're going to say the cinematography is great. Of course, we're going to say the acting is great. You can't criticize it, so there's less things to have a conversation about sometimes. So I realized I fucked up messed up. Am I allowed to swear?
No, you can swear. You can swear.
All right, cool. All right. Fuck, shit, cunt. Yes, okay. I feel like I fucked up when he was like, oh, which one of these movies do you want to pick? And I'm like, well, I haven't seen this in a while, so I wouldn't mind seeing this. And then like I'm watching the movie just last night. I'm like, fuck, I know you expect me to probably have some hot takes, but here's the hot take. I have no hot takes. Like it's a masterpiece. Like I'm not going to come out here and be like, well, Steven Spielberg, what was he smoking? Saving Private Ryan is trash. Like, of course not. It's a revolutionary film. So, yeah.
well, thank you for the nice segue. Without further ado, let's get into our review of Saving Private Ryan.
All right. You guys just plank out here for a while. Let me get this goddamn hitchhiker out of my boot. Drop him now! I'll shoot you! Drop!
That was from the trailer from the 1998 film Saving Private Ryan, directed by Steven Spielberg. I'm going to read the synopsis here from IMDb. Following the Normandy landings, a group of U.S. soldiers go behind enemy lines to retrieve a paratrooper whose brothers who have been killed in action. Saving Private Ryan. It had 11 Oscar nominations in 1999. It walked away with 5 of them, and infamously, it should have won Best Picture, but
Yes.
Shakespeare in Love won instead. Matt,
Yeah,
since you're the guest here on the podcast, what did you think of Saving Private Ryan?
Oh boy. Well, as I said, masterpiece. It's funny, like as I was watching it. So, for context, I appeared on another podcast not long ago called Clear Tinted Classics. Shout outs to them. And we talked about another classic film called The Maltese Falcon. And with that, like, I was just like, this is so outdated. This is still good. But like, I had a lot more criticisms than I thought I would have. So I went into this thinking like, oh, is it going to feel really dated? Is it going to feel like, because cinema's changed so much? Nope. Everything the critics said back then still applies today. Like, you feel like you're actually there. The cinematography is just mixed with the editing, like, and the sound editing. I can see why it won those awards for like sound editing and stuff like that. Like the way that someone just goes purely silent while they mess around with the frame rate and, you know, have it all jittery and stuff. It really just gets you there. And I was just thinking in my head, just like trying to compare it to recent war films. I thought of Dunkirk. I thought of 1917. I thought of Hacksaw Ridge. And I was just like, sure, those movies are great in their own right, but they're trying to do something else. And that's because you can't just try and let's emulate the atrocities of war, because this movie is it. It's perfected it. It's actually incredible. What I love on top of that is that it does have a really tight story and simple story of just trying to rescue a guy. And it still goes through those stages of like the hero's journey and stuff. And I love that type of tight script work that a lot of Spielberg movies have. And so it kind of just becomes this perfect storm of like these incredible action sequences with just masterful like moments of like real human connections between the characters. And I just absolutely love this movie. Hey, what about you? What are your thoughts?
I really love this movie too. I haven't seen it since I want to say like freshman year in high school, which is years ago, like multiple years ago now that I think about it. And the first time I saw it, I rented it at I picked it out at the library because I just saw it and I was like, oh, I want to check this out. And it was huge. Obviously, I'm a huge Steven Spielberg fan. Like I love pretty much every single one of his movies, and I'll watch anything that guy makes. And I was enthralled by it the first time I saw it. On a rewatch, I was actually surprised how much I remembered. Like
same,
like maybe it's because I'm talking about like the Normandy shot, like on the Omaha beach, like that entire scene has been done to death in pretty much every single World War II like movie, and like it's drilled into our brains in like video games and movies, like everywhere. But like even like the way like this movie like flows within the story, like it felt like I was just kind of like picking this movie up like where I left off. And I don't know, I just thought like all of like the character moments were really great. The cinematography, it won for best cinematography by Janusz Kaminski, and I think that the way this movie is shot really really inspired a lot of other cinematographers that were shooting like war movies, because before this movie came out, like there was the way war movies were shot were kind of like documentary style, This was kind of like the first film to kind of use a lot of medium shots and close-up shots where you're kind of like I'm sure Steven Spielberg wanted to make sure that like the audience was in it with like these soldiers and to kind of like show like the hard times of war and just like what they were going through. You see like war is hell, like in every way possible. Sorry, that was long-winded, but
no, I just piggybacking off that. I read something online about I think Spielberg and his team were talking to veterans, and because originally they weren't gonna apparently his original vision wasn't to make it so grim. It was, I kept seeing a reference to another movie I hadn't heard of before called A Boy's something. I don't know. But what he, after speaking to veterans, he a lot of them were saying, don't glamorize it. War is, it's hell. And someone made a comment that like everything was really blurry, and not because like vision wise, it's because of all the explosions and the sand was like picking up. So there was lots of like grains of stuff everywhere. And apparently that really, I can tell that must have really inspired him with the cinematography and the production design, because when it gets all shaky during those war scenes, like that is a lot of it. And that's him trying to put us there in the moment. The shaky cam, like again, the frame rate stuff, it's pretty revolutionary. And you just see it memed and parodied and copied to death. Something else I read, which really blew my mind, is apparently when they tried to screen this on free-to-air TV, they actually increased the saturation of the color grade quite a bit because they were getting complaints of people saying, oh, there's something wrong with our TV because it's so gray, there's like no color, which just goes to show how revolutionary and unique it was for him to desaturate the colors so much, which today seems like the standard practice. Like you put it, when you're editing a video, maybe you're cutting in Premiere, whatever, throw in DaVinci Resolve for your color grade and you start desaturating your colors, you start playing around with the vibrancy and all that stuff. But back then, like that wasn't really, it wasn't even a trope. It just wasn't a thing people did. And so to have such a unique color palette that was so unique that people thought there was something wrong with their TVs, that's mind-blowing to me. That's crazy. How do you come up with that idea? That's insane. And I would love to see what those terrible versions of the movie is, where they've completely changed the colors and everything. It must be terrible, but that like, just blows my mind.
It's like the movies being presented on those TVs, like at Best Buy or like an electronics store, where they're like the color saturation is really well like pumped up to get you to buy the TV. It's crazy. Like I think like I know we're just gonna be like just stroking Steven Spielberg like for like the next hour or something like that, but
he deserves it.
I think he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. But I think one of the things that I did really like about like this film that I didn't really remember like back in the day is that there's like the scene where it was like after like the Normandy like beach like scene, and the film cuts to like America, and and I kind of like seeing like the effects of war like on the opposite side of the world, and just kind of seeing like them kind of like talking about everything that's going on. Everyone's all like buttoned up and like looking all clean, and they're like making decisions for these men. They're like actually in the shit. And I think Steven Spielberg having like this, just like the way he uses colors, like in that scene, to make it kind of like washed out, and just kind of like these people mean well, but they don't actually know. I thought it was actually really brilliant. I didn't really remember it like when I watched it, like when I was in high school, and like seeing that like aspect really was really strong and powerful for me.
Yeah, I actually rewinded it just to double check, because the transition from the war to back in America was so smooth. I actually rewinded, like, what did I miss? And it was just such a smooth. Again, just the editing for this film is so partnered with the great directing, is so beautiful. It really caught me off guard too, seeing old mate Heisenberg with one arm. I didn't realize that Bryan Cranston was in this film. Which is pretty cool.
Speaking of actors, I didn't know that were in this film. Our boy Vin Diesel. I totally forgot he's in this film. I totally forgot that Vin Diesel was was he unnamed soldier or
no, he's got a name. It's Carrazzo or something. It starts with C. Carranzo, something like that. And
I think he's pretty good in it. To be honest,
he is. Well, look, he's well cast. Like, if you're gonna cast a young soldier, well, they come in all shapes and sizes, but of course, there's going to be some sort of tough guy there, and he suits it. And it's still to this day probably one of his best performances because he's not overselling or over dramatizing anything. He's trying to be. He's doing natural stuff. Apparently, he was cast off this. He'd only done 2 roles before that, and Spielberg saw him in an indie feature. I can't remember the name of it, but it just makes you go, damn, what was the movie that convinced Spielberg to put Vin Diesel in Saving Private Ryan? I've got to watch that, whatever that is.
Right. Yeah, I totally have to watch that now too. Matt Damon's also in this film as James Ryan, the soldier that they are going to look for, and young Matt Damon too, which kind of threw me
so
off.
Young. Yeah, so he looks like a different person. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
I read online that he was cast in this before he did Good Will Hunting, and he was sort of cast specifically because it's like, oh, it's good to have sort of an unknown actor. But then Good Will Hunting blew up, and so it just benefited the movie to have now him in another great movie back to back. But that wasn't the intention. They wanted him because he was an unknown.
Yeah, speaking of him being like an unknown, like one thing that I just read and a mutual of mine shared this with me is that Spielberg sent the entire cast to boot camp when he was like shooting this movie because he wanted the cast to like feel what it was like being like in the military and like serving in war. But he sent everyone except for Matt Damon, because there's spoilers for a movie that's like over 20 years old, but he wanted Matt Damon. He wanted the rest of the cast to feel resentment towards Matt Damon once they finally met up with each other. Like, we all know that scene where like they started resenting James Ryan didn't want to go with them. He wanted to fight for like the ground, like the ground that he was like protecting, and he wanted Steven Spielberg wanted like an authentic reaction, which just proves even more that he's like the GOAT, that he would totally exclude like a member of the cast from someone else to like get like an authentic reaction. I think that's really great.
Yeah, there's something I know this is such a out there reference, but something I love when it comes to storytelling. Dan Harmon, the guy who does Community and Rick and Morty and all that, he has this system of writing. It's called the Dan Harmon Story Circle, and he uses it for television, and I love it, and I use this all the time. It's sort of like his version of the hero's journey, and it sort of goes. Okay, for audio listeners, it's going to be a bit awkward, but imagine like a circle. But once you hit like the bottom of the circle, that's like your character achieving what they want. But you often find out, it's not what they want, or it's like they have to pay a price for getting it. And that is Matt Damon going, no, I want to stay here and fight. We have to earn it type thing. And that sort of like brings it back around. But ever since like I've learned about that, whenever I see that done well in movies, I can't stop noticing it now. Movies and TV shows. But when I see it done well, I just get this level of like inspiration, and I get really Like, I just really admire that. And this is like the best one. Like this whole movie, it's literally called Saving Private Ryan. And they get there and he's like, I don't want to be saved. I'm going to stay here and I'm going to defend this bridge. And then they have their argument and they've got to decide, well, why are we really here? And it is to, like, you know, make a difference in the war. And the fact they all choose to stay, it just creates, yes, we still get a big action set piece, but the stakes for that set piece are so much bigger now. Because it's like, what if you go through all this shit and he still dies? You know? Like, it makes it so exciting. It is masterful. And since I'm on the topic, when the tanks are coming in and they're just waiting, the suspense, dude, like, oh, like that's the guy who did Jaws. That is definitely the guy who did Jaws. Like, I'm there. I know how the movie ends. I'm lit in my little bed with my phone, and I'm just like, I'm cringing up. It's good. Oh shit! Like, it is incredible filmmaking.
It's amazing.
How do you do that? It's too good.
It's amazing that a director can, like, create suspense for someone even on multiple rewatches, and you know it's gonna happen. Like, that's the sign of, like, a really good director, that will, like, I already know it's gonna happen, but, like, I know, like, I'm still scared. Like, I'm still like on the couch, just like, oh, what's is he gonna make it out alive and stuff like that? I think that's I think that's really great. But another factoid about Saving Private Ryan, it earned $481.8 million, making it the second highest grossing film of 1998. It would go on to win many accolades, including Golden Globes, Academy Awards, BAFTAs, and Saturn Awards. It is considered one of the greatest films ever made. I'm personally just really excited that you picked this movie to be on the show, because I want you on the show. But up until now, to be honest, this entire Letterboxd Top 250, like, I've seen a really interesting amount of films, and a lot of them I did like. But this is, out of all of them so far, this one has been the most entertaining. Which is funny, because this is the second Steven Spielberg film that we're covering. One is...
what's the other one?
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Good one. Yeah.
That, and to be honest, on a rewatch, don't really like that one all that much. I like Temple of Doom a little bit more. But
Okay.
But
I respect that.
This one, like, Saving Private Ryan, is, like, very entertaining, but also, like, I heard that a lot of people, like, when this movie came out in theaters, that a lot of people that experienced war, they walked out of the theater because it was like the sound design was just was too real for them, and, like, that sucks that happened, but that just shows, like, how authentic, like, this movie actually was. And it's very unfortunate for people that experienced war and experienced the real hell. But hopefully for people that, for people like me that haven't experienced war, I can see, like, that side a little bit more and can be like, hey, we shouldn't be fighting to solve our problems anymore. And I hope that's what Steven Spielberg was trying to do with this film.
That's a really interesting thing to point out. Like, it gave some people, like, PTSD or whatever. Like this, the guns, they're real guns that they use for the sound effects and stuff. They recorded real guns and stuff like that. It does make you wonder, like, the ethics in cinema. Like, where is the line? Like, I know I've encountered it myself where I've thought, I'd love to write a horror script. And then you start thinking of things that are scary. And then you sort of realize some of the things that are really scary, you don't want to watch a movie about because it, you know, maybe it gets gross or it just doesn't make you uncomfortable. So you get like a lot of horror films, we like them because they're fun. So you got to find the line sometimes. And the thing is, like, with Spielberg, what he set out to do was not to make a fun movie. It wasn't like, this could have bombed at the box office. And if it did, I would have totally understood it. But the goal was to create an authentic representation. And I think that's why some, like, I don't know about you, but like, I remember, I think when I saw it, I was in school. And I've heard many stories of this being shown in schools as a way to explain this is what the war was like. Like, so it does go to this level of it's educational. It's not just entertainment as well. So yeah, I find that really interesting. Hearing that, I feel sorry for those people who had to relive that in the cinema. You know, maybe they went there thinking it'll be patriotic or whatever, but it also just goes to show how much of a great job that team did.
Yeah, and for sure. And Steven Spielberg isn't a stranger to making films like this. Like look at Schindler's List. Schindler's List is
Was that before this?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Schindler's List says 1990, I believe. It was like early 90s. This was late 90s.
Right.
And Schindler's List was basically, it's like you're a fly in the wall and just kind of like experiencing like Auschwitz and like and it was necessary for Steven Spielberg to make that film, and I feel like that's his most personal film like to date. I know a lot of people want to say Fabelmans, but I didn't care for Fabelmans all that much. but I can see a lot of similarities between Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan, just based on like how much of a fly on the wall the audience was like just experiencing everything. Yeah, there's not like I want to get into like the story all that much, but there really isn't much story here. But I feel like that's kind of like the important thing, is that you're like it's just this team trying to find this guy. That's it. So
it's literally like the script is basically just a checklist. They go to location 1, location 2, location 3. They find him. They defend the thing. The end. And the thing most people talk about is, of course, the opening war scene, which goes for almost half an hour, which is crazy. Like the story starts 30 minutes into the film. And I've seen movies do that before, and it's usually not a good thing. In this movie, it's a great thing. It really sets up the themes. And I think that goes to show, like, this movie's not plot driven. It's atmosphere driven, you know?
Yeah. And I love the way like you described the way this film starts, as like it starts out in the graveyard, and that correct me if I'm wrong, but that's supposed to be Tom Hanks, right? Like older Tom Hanks, like in the graveyard. And
no. I'm pretty sure that's Matt Damon.
Okay,
up.
Yeah.
So that's why at the end he's like, tell me I've lived a good life. Because that was like his promise to Tom Hanks's character, that his sacrifice.
That's right. That's
thing.
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love like that transition of his eye, and it zooms in on his eye, and it's like we're reliving his memories, which is it's such a beautiful transition to just be like, obviously this guy is experiencing PTSD at this time, Steven Spielberg is kind of letting the audience in on like what this guy is experiencing and like what he experienced. I think that it's a beautiful transition. Unfortunate that he experienced that, but I just think it's a great way to like introduce the film.
Oh yeah, it's, you know what, the intro reminds me of Titanic in a way. The way that it starts off in, there's an older person, you go back in time. Do you want to hear a mind-blowing fact that I read on Wikipedia? So maybe it's not true, but it's kind of crazy for me. The original script was, obviously was shopped around, and before it was attached with Tom Hanks and Spielberg, the original director was going to be Michael Bay, apparently. Imagine how different that would have been.
It'd be a Pearl Harbor at that point.
Well, like, just think, like, it just goes to show, like, because apparently this was also optioned alongside 2 other war movies. One of them started, again, I can't remember these exactly, but one of them starred Schwarzenegger, and the other starred, can't remember. It was either Sylvester Stallone or Jean-Claude Van Damme or something like that. And they're basically looking. I think the studio was expecting this to be like an action movie. And then when Spielberg came on board and DreamWorks came on with him, he had a different vision too. And it was from the research of talking to veterans. He was kind of like, okay, let's make the theme about, being authentic and stuff, which just goes to show like the power of Spielberg. Cause it sounds like nobody's like, actually Spielberg, maybe we should. No, that I can tell you right now, none of that happened. They listened to him, and this is a vision that was brought to life, and an incredible one at that as well.
Yeah, it's definitely an incredible vision. Like we talked about, like the Omaha Beach scene, that the infamous, the famous one that everyone has memed to death. That scene cost a reported $11 million to shoot. It involved up to 1,000 extras, some of whom were members of the Irish Army Reserve, and those extras, 20 to 30 of them were amputees issued with prosthetic limbs to play soldiers who had their limbs blown off. It's like that just adds like to the authenticity. It's like it's crazy. Can you imagine? I think pretty sure Dunkirk did something similar to this, where Dunkirk used like this many extras. But can you imagine directing this many people like on like a set like this? I can't even imagine.
I can't. I have trouble even imagining just being there as the guy that brings someone coffee, because you would feel like you're literally in a war. Like you've got those what do you call those big X things that are meant to stop boats and tanks getting in, and you got all this military artillery around, and like those things could kill someone too. So the safety procedures they would have to follow would have been insane. Like with all those explosions, and because it feels very on the spot and chaotic, but I assume it's not. It would have been very controlled. But dude, just even being there, I wish I was there just to take a selfie, just that
Same.
production design is crazy. That's crazy.
You're like, hey, just kidding.
It would have been wild to be like, okay, so here's the guy with his arm blown off. The water is all red, filled with blood. And, have you got my Starbucks yet? Thanks. Cheers. And just this pure normalcy happening around that. That would have been a bizarre experience.
It's like finding the Starbucks cup like on the set of Game of Thrones.
You
find a Starbucks cup on Saving Private. I didn't see one. Did you see one in a shot?
I did not see any Starbucks on the Battle of Omaha Beach, but you know what? Like there would have been someone whose job was to bring the coffees around. That would have been a thing. It was still a set at the end of the day. It's amazing when you get some production design like that, and you really do feel like you're transported to another world. That has been a theme with a lot of Spielberg productions. I remember even just watching recently, what was it? West Side Story. West Side Story. So that was last year, I think.
Yeah.
And even with that, it's like Spielberg's style. Usually there are a lot, it's weirdly, this film does not have a lot of what I would consider to be trademark Spielberg stuff, but he usually does a lot of long takes that are like medium to wides. And instead of moving the camera and cutting all the time, the actors will just move into frame to sort of like hide that. And I know they did that a lot on like West Side Story as well. And I just remember thinking these sets are so giant and so massive, and it's an adaptation of fucking stage play, like where they had this much room to work with. So that's such an amazing theme throughout all these films. Even something like Ready Player One, which is just so much CGI and stuff. The grandness and scale, he really knows how to pull back and be like, take all this in. But also he can do that because I'm Steven Spielberg. Look at all this money I have. The studios they're not going to nickel and dime him, studios aren't
going to push back because I am for cinema. I am.
Yes. He is cinema, dude. They could get rid of all the movies in the world and just leave us with Spielberg ones. And one, there'd be if you include the ones he produces, not just directs, but one, it'd be enough to fill up like an old blockbuster, and two, you wouldn't be bored for a while because there's a lot of variety in there,
Well,
which is pretty crazy.
I did a Twitter Space like series with someone else. It wasn't officially mine, but we covered all of Steven Spielberg films, and
What?
it took us like 9 weeks. It took us
Whoa.
9. It was like
And what, every
9
day
weeks.
or how many?
It was like
many?
every Friday. Every Friday.
Oh my
it was
gosh.
like 4 hour. It was like 4 to 5 hour spaces.
And you're covering multiple films per session.
Multiple
Oh my
films per
god.
session.
That's
ridiculous.
crazy.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
I don't understand how he does it. Like he's an older bloke now, and he still directs like what, 2 films a year, something like that.
Yeah.
Or at least one a year, on top of producing. It's incredible. There's still great movies. There's still great.
It's
he's
incredible.
He's nominated every year.
It's incredible, but the thing is like he did not need to be nominated for Best Director this year for The Fabelmans.
Oh yeah, sorry. I thought you were going to say for this movie. I'm like, hold on a second.
No, it's like I'm just saying like since we're kind of like honoring Steven Spielberg a little bit at the last part of the podcast, just because that's what we should do. I think like what the Academy Award should do is just give him the Lifetime Achievement Award and just be like, you're not getting nominated anymore, because it's like at this point, have someone else get nominated and fill the Steven Spielberg spot, or make it the Steven Spielberg Award for best directing or something like that.
I love that.
I don't know.
It was wild this last Oscars because he had a few noms, but you just saw like Everything Everywhere All at Once, who were a bunch of first-time filmmakers cleaning up. And then what was the other film that was cleaning up this year?
It was another war film. It was All Quiet.
Was it All Quiet on Western Front? Yeah. And just left, right, and Spielberg just standing there. But like, he's not upset because he's like, I've got 100 of these. That's okay.
Right. Yeah, he's got an entire closet full of of Oscars and awards, but yeah, that's pretty much all.
Look, before we wrap up, let me throw something at you. Okay, I've got an idea. Since this has turned into a Steven Spielberg podcast, it turns out you are basically a Steven Spielberg expert who's done all these Twitter Spaces and stuff. Do you have a top 5 Spielberg films?
Oh, you're gonna have me rank them? Because that's what we did.
Doesn't have to be ranked. Okay, doesn't have to be ranked. You can. They could be just maybe 5 of your favorites, maybe.
Okay, so obviously Schindler's List is on there, and then this film, Saving Private Ryan, for sure. I got a lot of shit on that Twitter space for putting The Terminal on there. I really like The Terminal. I like The Terminal a lot.
With Tom Hanks, right? Is that the one?
With Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
I just like a lot of like one location films. And I understand it's not his greatest film, but I personally love it. So it's like I love The Terminal a lot. I think it's really great. I think it's kind of a sweet film, and I think Tom Hanks does have a really good performance. Then I would throw Tintin on there. The Adventures of Tintin.
I used to love reading Tintin as a kid. I still haven't seen the movie. I really need to watch that movie.
Steven Spielberg, he used to read Tintin as well, and he said he was inspired to direct Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like Raiders of the Lost Ark pulled heavy influences from Tintin. And then
I did not know that.
And then when Weta Digital, or Peter Jackson's production company, Weta, said that we're working on Tintin, and they reached out to Steven Spielberg to direct, he said yes immediately. And there's so many shots within Tintin that are very Steven Spielberg-esque, that are it was almost like, because this was kind of one of his first animated films that he's ever directed. And I love that he kind of had like free reign to kind of like put the camera wherever he wanted, but still kind of throw it like his like his type of shots like in there. And then
That's cool.
yeah, and then shoot, what's the last one? I can't. And then I would put Temple of Doom in there. I would put Temple of Doom. That's my favorite Indiana Jones. I don't like 3 as much, and Raiders of the Lost Ark, in my opinion, just does not hold up. But that's a whole other podcast that we did already. Go listen to that one. But
Throw the plug
what's
in
your
there.
what's your top 5?
Oh shit, dude. Fuck. Okay, well, I'm not as much of an aficionado as you. I haven't even seen Tintin. But look, Jurassic Park, obviously. Fuck it. I want to put this movie in Saving Private Ryan. I really like. There's got so many movies. Here's the thing: I didn't grow up with Indiana Jones. I grew up with The Mummy. So, like, when I end up watching Indiana Jones, I was like, oh, it's just like The Mummy but older. And so I don't get that nostalgia for it.
Right.
Jaws, I guess Jaws.
I can't believe I didn't say Jaws.
That being said, I feel Jaws, like this might be controversial, but I feel like Jaws is starting to show its age a little bit. Like it's still really masterful, but
I disagree because I recently saw it on IMAX.
Remastered. I haven't seen it.
It still holds up. It still holds up.
That's cool.
Yeah.
As a kid, I really liked Hook, but I haven't seen it in a long time. I really liked Minority Report. This is hard.
There's so many good films.
Yeah. Even I know this is a weird pick, but I remember watching The Post and being particularly impressed with it. And I know that's a very small scale film, but I enjoyed it. Look, I'm not saying like don't drop everything and go out to watch it. It's not going to change your life. But that's an underrated Spielberg one, I would say.
Yeah. I thought
you were
going to come out with a hot take and be like War Horse. So
I haven't seen War Horse, but you know what though? He's executive produced just so many films that are also influential. A lot of them I've only seen recently, which is like would piss off a lot of people. Like I saw The Goonies for the first time last year. I saw Back to the Future for the first time just a couple years ago.
For the first time?
Yeah, as a kid, I didn't grow up with like parents or friends who were big movie lovers. Like I fell in love with film, I guess later towards like maybe my early 20s or like late teens. And so when I start to go back, I have a lot of like missed films there because so like I've weirdly become this big aficionado of like early 2000s films and shit. I suppose so, because that's like when I started really getting obsessed. But yeah,
that's cool.
You know what?
I like that. I wasn't like shaming or anything, because that's like one thing that I like to do on this podcast is don't shame people for seeing movies. Which is the whole reason why I did like this series, is because like the Letterboxd has like a percentage of how many, like when on the top 250 they have a percentage of how many movies you've seen. I've only seen 3%. I've only seen 3%. And yeah, so I'm like, I obviously haven't seen a lot of like the movies in the top 250, and like that's why I'm doing the series, just trying to check off the box.
It's a cool idea, man. It's a great way for you to like get those movies crossed off your list and also create some cool content. So
yeah, for sure.
I love that, man.
But yeah, what's the last Spielberg movie?
Oh fuck! Thought I got out of it. Can I just say The Lost World? Nah, that can't be The Lost World.
It's The Lost World.
You know what? I'll say one that people aren't expecting just to be unique and special. Minority Report.
That's a good one. I think that's my most rewatched Spielberg.
Really?
For sure.
Wow. I find like the world building is really interesting in that movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I haven't seen it in a while, but like there's so many aspects of that film that just stayed with me. Um, and I got to be honest, like much like this movie, Schindler's List, I know I've seen it, but I can't remember it very well at all. So that's why I hesitate to put that on the list.
Right.
But I know it's a classic. So yeah.
I've seen it recently, and it for the first time, actually, like for the very first time, and it knocked me off my feet. And it's 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 necessary for everyone to see that film. Like
that's a big thing to say. Wow.
Yeah, it's like it's incredible filmmaking. It's really great. But back to Saving Private Ryan. Matt, do you have any final thoughts on Saving Private Ryan that you haven't already said, or just anything you want to gloat more about about Saving Private Ryan?
Just to everybody listening, yeah, sorry if we've been a bit all over the shop, but it's kind of like what I was saying before, like more plot-driven movies or medium, not perfect movies. They're probably easier to talk about, but with this, it's like, what's there to say that hasn't already been said? It just revolutionized in so many aspects. So not revolutionized, pioneered, I should say. It pioneered so many tropes of war films and stuff. And I had a lot of flashbacks to me recently watching The Maltese Falcon for the first time, because that was the movie that sort of pioneered noir films. And like this sort of like, I know it's not the first war movie, but it kind of like, it set the blueprint for like, this is how you show war. And it's crazy to see how those things are still affecting war movies today. It's that good. Also, we haven't said this, so I'm just going to say it because I'm going to get mad if I don't say it. Tom Hanks is he's always great, but he's such a great protagonist in this movie. Like you really, it's weird how they're able to set up this level of authority he has amongst the troops, yet still feel like an underdog somehow, which is just a mind fuck how you juggle those two character aspects and pull that off. I think it comes down a lot to performance of Tom Hanks himself, but it's pretty awesome. He's such a likable and protagonist to follow. So that was also great.
The thing that I found that was interesting about his character is that he plays it really well, and it like his character, like before he was in the war, he was like a middle school teacher, like an English teacher, and I just like what people's like previous job was before like defending or fighting for their life. It's just kind of to kind of pull it to something recently. The Last of Us. Have you seen? Have you seen all?
Love The Last of Us. Yes,
okay,
yes.
So you know Melanie Lewinsky's character in The Last of Us, how she used to be kind of like I see her character kind of like a soccer mom or something like that, but like Apocalypse, she is like the leader of like this tribe. That's kind of how I saw like Tom Hanks, like different professions for different environments, kind of like how they present themselves and how they see how other people's perceive them. I think it's really great and really well performed by Tom Hanks.
I like that comparison. Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, if shit hit the fan right now, would I step up? I wouldn't, because I'm a wuss. I'd be crying. I'd be in a corner. But you never know who could be leading the troops.
Right. But yeah, that's something that I really liked about like Tom Hanks' character. My final thoughts. I don't like what can I say that you haven't already said or everyone else has been said. This film is a masterpiece. But I always like to say, since we're going through the Letterboxd like top 250, the Letterboxd has a 5-star rating. What would you rate? It's obviously going to be 5 stars, right?
Actually, I think it should be 1. Of course, it's 5. In fact, I'd imagine most films would be 5. What I'm curious is what Letterboxd has given it. Like, what is it ranked on the top 250?
I believe right now it is ranked at like 247.
So it's low.
Yeah, it's it has like a 4.2 average, actually.
What are the criticisms? I want to know. What are the
Yeah.
criticisms? Who's
Well,
talking shit on Saving Private Ryan?
It's Letterboxd. That's like I love the website, but it's just there's a lot of discourse everywhere. I just want to say,
That's a great response. It's Letterboxd.
I'm giving it 4.5 stars. It for some reason for me it's hard for films to get 5 stars, but I 4.5 with a heart. Like, I like this film a lot. I think it's incredibly like inspirational for the films that came after it, and it's a really great film and my favorite film that we've covered so far.
I'll say this: it's not my type of film. Like, it's not the film that I would pick out to watch down to my personal taste. But I want to give it 5 stars because like it knows what it's setting out to do and it achieves it with flying colors. Like, if I was to put this up against one of my, I don't know, favorite guilty pleasure movies, I might have the rating lower. But I do like it when I see a film like it knows what it wants to be and it just goes for it. And yeah, that's really great.
I think for me, the reason why it's 4.5 is that I found this film very hard to watch sometimes, just because of the violence.
Understandable. Yeah.
And I like, especially like living here in America too, with like gun violence and stuff like that. It's seeing guns like on screen. It's become very hard. And I feel like back then I would have said 5 stars, but now since it's like America's like this war torn like country.
Wow. That's crazy.
Like I have 4.5 because I don't want to see that anymore. But still a great film. It's really great.
I don't mean to laugh, so I'm sorry if I come off as insensitive, but it's just crazy to me because like I have a friend who lives in Chicago, and she messaged me this morning, just be like, I need to move to fucking Australia. This place. She just started telling me some stories about some gun violence related stuff, and I was just like, damn, dude, like we live on very different sides of the country, of the planet. It's, yeah, like when I see guns, I think of movies and video games. I don't think of real life. So I can't imagine that sort of shit, dude. That's wild to me.
It's funny that Americans are willing to deal with deadly insects and bugs and not trying to hate on Australia, but I'm just saying you got some pretty scary bugs and creatures out there.
All right, look, because you're my friend, I'll let you know on a secret. That is just a myth we put out there to tell people to stop coming here. The spiders, we didn't have spiders. They don't exist. That's not true. We have some scary stuff. We do have some scary. You know what though? Like to me, I guess we do have some crazy stuff, but like I'm so used to it that like it doesn't seem that insane to me. But every now and then, like I'll have an American friend send me a photo. They'll be like, "What the fuck is this?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, you just see them in your drain sometimes. Like it's not a big deal." And they'll be like, "This could kill you." I'm like, I think you have bigger things to worry about.
I just don't like spiders. That's my thing. But
no, me too. I'm a little bitch. Yeah, I live here. I live in the home of spiders, and I don't like them either. I scream like a little girl.
But stay tuned if you don't like spiders to what we'll be talking about next week here on the Real Lovers podcast, the Letterboxd series.
What a segue!
But before I reveal the next film, Matt, where can people find you online?
Oh, you guys can find me on TikTok and Instagram at Vella Matt. Also, if you want to follow my own filmmaking endeavors, find Vella Matt Films on YouTube. I also have a podcast called Upcoming Attractions. We're not super active these days, but every now and then, if you want to hear some crazy opinions about some upcoming films, you can check us out there on TikTok and YouTube as well.
Definitely go check out what Matt's doing and the Upcoming Attractions podcast. All the links will be in the description down below. or whatever, if it's off to the side, wherever it is, wherever you're listening, you can listen to the Real Lovers podcast anywhere where you listen to podcasts. You can follow me at Marley Loves Film pretty much anywhere where you can post a video or write. I'm at Marley Loves Film pretty much everywhere. Letterboxd, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Follow me there. Let's talk some films. Next week on the pod, we are going to be talking about the 1971 film The Devils, directed by Ken Russell.
Ooh.
Yeah,
I don't know that one.
I don't know it either. I haven't seen it, but here's a synopsis here from Letterboxd.com. A dramatized historical account of the rise and fall of Urbain Grandier and a 17th century Roman Catholic priest accused of witchcraft following alleged demonic possessions of sexually repressed nuns.
Ooh, that sounds metal. That's metal.
Sounds metal, but sounds very film bro. Which is something that I've been discovering throughout this entire series that I'm doing, but I'm here for it. I don't know. I'm excited for it. So if that film looks really great, watch it. Tune in next week and listen to our discussion. Matt, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me. This is so great to catch up with you, man.
Exactly. This has been a wonderful catch up and just conversation about film. My name's Marley Silverbrand for the Real Livers podcast. And
I'm Matt Vella from Upcoming Attractions and Vella Matt Films. Thank you for hanging out with us today. You guys are awesome.
And keep watching films. See ya.
Laters.